the Reg App person. I'm joined by Master Sergeant Kamika Embry, representing the Air Force Reserve. The agenda for today will include a brief recap of the last live event provided by Major Richard King and Tech Sergeant Robert Craven of a reenlistment with bonus scenario. We will also discuss the as-is versus to-be scenario for special duty assignment pay. After this, Master Sergeant Embry and I will be joined by Major Richard King to conduct a brief question and answer session. And then we will end with some information on the next webcast and upcoming outreach. During the last AFIPPS Facebook Live event hosted on 23 May, Major King and Tech Sergeant Craven presented a reenlistment with bonus scenario that compared the current process with the future AFIPPS process. To briefly recap, the scenario showed an Air Force Staff Sergeant who was eligible for reenlistment and selective reenlistment bonus. The current process shows how the process requires a lot of manual input as well as multiple interfaces, which makes the process vulnerable to miscommunication, delays, and errors. The future AFIPPS process shows how the process will be streamlined to create a more efficient, user-friendly process to increase accuracy and timeliness of pay. For more information on this scenario, the recorded version can be found on AFPC's YouTube page, found at the link on the slide. For the purpose of showing the effects AFIPPS will have on Air Force personnel and paid businesses, today's scenario will discuss how a junior enlisted air traffic controller would receive special duty assignment pay with today's process compared to the way business will be done in AFIPPS. We'll first discuss the regular Air Force process for special duty assignment pay at a very high level. In the first step of the process, the senior airman visits her unit commander to complete the classification on the job training form, the Air Force Form 2096, where the commander will certify the member qualifies for the special duty assignment pay. Generally, the unit will send the documentation via CMS, the case management system, or via another electronic or manual method to the MPF, the military personnel flight, for further action. The MPF personnelist validates the form and enters a special duty pay transaction into MilPDS, the military personnel data system. MilPDS generates a systematic transaction to the Defense Joint Military Pay System, DJMS, to start the special duty assignment pay entitlement to generate pay to the member. Normally, the transaction has no issues. However, in some cases, the MilPDS transaction may fail at the MPF level. At that point, the MPF will generate a CMS action to AFPC, the Air Force Personnel Center, for evaluation of the issue and correction. AFPC can usually adjudicate the case and correct MilPDS. However, there are many occasions the CMS case may need to be forwarded to DFAS, the Defense Finance and Accounting Service, for direct update of DJMS. DFAS will update a special duty assignment pay entry in DJMS and close the case accordingly. DJMS will then disperse the airman's pay on the next payroll. Now I'm going to turn it over to Master Sergeant Embry to review the ARC as-is process.
Good morning. I'm Master Sergeant Embry. Currently, the Air Force Reserve component, including traditional Air National Guardsmen and reservists, is burdened with extremely manual process today. The Air Force Form 2096 is still used to certify the member's eligibility for special duty assignment pay, and it is sent to the MPF for validation. However, the MPF does not use MilPDS to send pay transactions to DJMS. The Reserve Pay Office, or Financial Services Office, in the case of the Air National Guard, will receive a copy from the hard copy form from the MPF to use in updating DGMS to start the member's special duty assignment pay. Issues related to special duty assignment pay are managed directly between the unit, the MPF, and the finance office as appropriate. The process will remain unchanged at this point. This is because documentation required for pay certification will still be needed to support financial audits. In the case of the Air Reserve component, CMS may be used to transmit the Air Force Form 2096 to the MPF as a regular Air Force does today. AFIPPS' primary focus is to mitigate today's back and forth manual workaround issues between two separate personnel and pay systems. Where AFIPPS will offer an improvement is the direct Air Force control of pay impacting transactions within one system. Everything relies on the trigger transaction of updating the approved special duty assignment pay at the MPF. Additionally, the system will evaluate member data, for example, organization, special experience identifier, and Air Force specialty code information to validate a member's eligibility for pay and mitigate human error. AFIPPS, instead of DGMS, will execute payroll and disperse member pay directly via the U.S. Treasury. Should an issue arise, the MPF will update payroll issue. The error will immediately be identified to the appropriate personnel list for mitigation. This enables efficient correction of the issue, so an off-cycle payroll run can be made to put money in the hands of our customer. This will be accomplished without the do loop of the CMS process and redundant updates in two separate systems. Essentially, the total force will be supported by this capability. Now that we've walked through the scenario, we will be joined by Major King to answer some of your questions. Please type any AFIPPS related questions into the comments section and we will read them off. If there are no typed questions, we'll read off some of our most frequently asked questions.
I would do your FAQs. At this time, please type your questions in the chat area. Thank you.
To answer the question from ARPC, what is the current timeline for AFIPPS? Right now, our schedule is having us going live in January of 2021. For the question related to jumps, today there are many processes that are outside of the system. If we're updating any information within AFIPPS, that will then drive the pay. If there is a need to check an outside system to validate, that would probably remain the same, but we can go back and take that for action and get you an answer. To answer the question from the 908th, is this strictly for the MPF, FSS level, or their CSS duties? This is the total force system that will be used at both the base level and higher headquarters level. There is no distinction between AFIPPS and MIL-PDS today, with the exception of adding the payroll module. Switch spots with Major King. Go back. Major King, can you move up? To answer the question about training on the new system for MPFs, training should start next year. The specific date is to be determined. We will be instituting a train the trainer type of event where we will train a good number of personnelists and FM personnel to go back to their respective bases to then train the rest of the personnelists on system related. To answer the question, will there be integrated personnel and finance when this goes live? The intention is to take some of the business processes that finance currently takes on today and put that into the personnel sphere. Ideally, some of those processes would be automated. That way it does not add a good number of manual processes for the A1 personnel. But as we go through development, we're identifying those issues. Are there any questions on Facebook? Major King, do you see any questions on Facebook Live? There are a lot of questions related to the transcript and the slides. We can try to make those available to everybody. We will talk with the rest of our team to see how we can make that happen. To answer the question, is this for only active duty? No, this will apply to the total force. Just for clarification, this is not a standalone system. AFIPPS is MIL-PDS with the payroll module integrated. In addition to the payroll module, there'll also be the absence management module, which will replace LeaveWeb. AFIPPS is not for just SDAP. It's going to be for all pay affecting transactions. DJMS will go away, and AFIPPS will subsume all of those functions. To answer the question, how will we input transactions into AFIPPS? Air National Guard example, please. There is going to be some interaction between arrows, UTAPs. How that's going to be done tomorrow is still yet to be determined as we go through development, but there will be an interface. There was a question, how will this system affect SRBs and other big retention issues? Can you please provide a little bit more clarification? The question about LeaveWeb and when that's going to be ending, the ideal plan is to sunset LeaveWeb as we roll on AFIPPS. Yes, it would be safe to say that AFIPPS is the new MIL PDFs. There is a manpower study projected for this transition. That is tentatively scheduled to happen about a year after we go live. The rationale behind that is to ensure that we have all of the kinks worked out between the system and the business side. Once we have a constant flow of information and have things ironed out, then we can get an accurate assessment of what the manpower pull is going to be. For CMS cases, this will not be a thing of the past. CMS will still exist for some specific transactions. However, the number of cases should drastically decrease based on the single system that handles pay and HR transactions. Any transactions that are specific to DJMS should go away tomorrow since there is no DJMS. For the training dates at from AFPC, those are still to be determined based on business and technical needs. Yes, total force is everybody, Guard, Reserve, Reg Af. AFIPPS will not include PCS household goods, non-temporary storage payments. That's all still going to be part of the PCS process, which will be handled through TMO. AFIPPS Increment 1.0 strictly deals with the paycheck, basic pay and entitlements. We are not going to be running dual systems. MIL PDS will evolve into AFIPPS. The audit requirements are still going to exist tomorrow. As to how the audits are going to work is still to be determined based on development of the system. Right now, scheduled delivery of AFIPPS is January of 2021, and that will be to all bases. We will not be doing a incremental release to each of the bases individually. It will all happen at the same time. To the question of asking about the 45 days for CMS cases, right now it's too early to tell based on where we're at in development. To give a recap of where we're at in development right now, we are very early on in the stages where we are looking at creating tables and elements within the system right now for anything that is residing outside of MIL PDS today. If information is based out of DJMS, we are creating the elements and tables so that we can convert that data over. So as far as eligibility, we are still working on that, and that is to be determined. But we will not have a minimum viable product for some time as we go through development. Yes, CSSs will have access to AFIPPS. The question about responsibilities for AFIPPS to allow FM MIL PDS access. The securities are still to be determined based on the business need. As we identify the need for different responsibilities, different roles and permissions, we will address those with the business. However, right now, there is not a way ahead at this point. We have not come to that point of development yet. Yes, the AFIPPS migration will encompass all components at the same time. The dependent discrepancy reports, we have not come to that issue yet. As we go through and go live, we can readdress to see if that will still be a requirement. But as of right now, we are not tentatively getting rid of any reports. AFIPPS, as it relates to DCAPES, there is very limited interaction that we can have with that just to ensure that we retain the high side, low side separation. We are still working out a solution to ensure that deployment entitlements are expediently put onto the members' records. As of right now, there is no tentative change in MPF structure. So as far as the new roles and responsibilities, as of right now, there is no change. A lot of the functions that the general personnelist does today drives pay. Just today, it's not as direct because we have the FM personnel to do that. Tomorrow, we will have a system that will be able to process a lot of those transactions behind the scenes automatically. The intention is to have all leave authorizations through AFIPPS tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I mean when AFIPPS goes live. Changes may or may not be instantaneous within the system. We will still retain some of the X19 transactions, the overnight transactions. Some will be in real time.
Will there be E53s for separations and retirements as an existing requirement once this rolls out? There will no longer be E53s. Everything will be managed within one system. So once you process the transaction for a member to retire or separate, the system will review the data and the members will be separated as we do today.
Once we get closer to the end of the development, we will be able to have a better timeline of how long MIL-PDS, if and when it will go down in order to make the transition over. So more to follow on that one.
Is this system being utilized through Oracle? Oracle is the AFIPPS is Oracle EBS.
So if we could refer back to a previous webcast, we talked about Oracle as a system, the Oracle Enterprise Business Suite. Today, MIL-PDS is based on the HR module. Tomorrow, we will have the HR absence management, which would be our leave, and then the payroll module. So as this system further evolves, there is the possibility that we could add more modules to give it increased capability. But for this first increment to go live in 2021 is going to be just the payroll and the absence management module added onto the human resources module.
Are we going to use this system for creating pay records for sessions? Yes. As we assess members into AFIPPS, we're going to create pay records.
Anybody that's going to be paid through the Air Force will have to have a pay record within AFIPPS. To answer the question, yes, you did get it right. DJMS is going away, not necessarily tomorrow. We will have advanced notice of when that's going to happen. When I say tomorrow, I mean when we do go live with AFIPPS. Once we get further into development of the system where we can actually show you hands-on with AFIPPS, we will do so. We are currently not at a place right now where we can walk you through. It would look very similar to Mill PDS today because we are still creating just tables that are on the back end side. As we create new forms, new pages where you can update information as it relates to pay specific, the intention is to be able to do a walkthrough. But we are still early on in the stages for that. There's a question about, with the new system, will Wing get access to their detachments, leave at other bases? That is a roles and permissions question. As we get closer to creating those roles and permissions as it relates to payroll, we can probably get a better answer on that, but we don't have an answer as of right now of who and which units are going to have access to be able to view leave from other bases. There's a question, how will we report leave if AFIPPS is ruling out leave web? Can you please provide a little more clarification on that? Do we have buy-in from Air National Guard leadership on the use of this system? Yes, this is a total force system, and we've had buy-in from all levels of leadership.
What happens when a commander needs to approve leave? Is the commander going to have access to AFIPPS? Yes. Once the member requests leave, it'll route through the supervisor to the commander.
One of the benefits to AFIPPS is the increased transparency for the unit. Today, the commander has very limited access into accessing records for the entire unit, whereas with AFIPPS, because they're a commander, they would have that designated role, which would give them elevated security to be able to see many different functions within AFIPPS, leave being one of them. Will the absence management system reduce the need for leave audits or reports, or just a new system with the same requirements? It will not alleviate the Air Force from audit requirements. We have FM personnel that are integrated in with this team in order to create AFIPPS. And if there is any law, regulation, or policy that requires an audit, it will still remain for tomorrow. How will a member put in for leave? That will be through AFIPPS. The intention is to have the same functionality, if not increased functionality, when this goes live.
Who will grant access to AFIPPS? Will base level PSM grant access?
For the general personnelist, it will still be the same 2875 through your PSM. However, for the General Air Force member, there will be no 2875 that would give you access to AFIPPS. This will be no different than accessing anything on the portal, any one of the number of systems. It would be an inherent right. Systems in place will not be removed until AFIPPS works and pays people correctly, right? DJMS will still be online to be able to work historical pay issues. Anything that happens prior to us going live, any pay issues that are residual from that will still be worked through DJMS. Once we can get through all of the pay issues that we currently have, the plan would be for the Air Force to sunset it. DJMS itself will not go away for some time because the other services still use it as they transition to their integrated personnel and pay system as well. However, the Air Force, the overall goal is to sunset our use of DJMS once we go live. How will this affect CDCs and training plans? As we go live, or as we get closer to going live, that'll be part of the training team. They're looking at all of the different changes to our day-to-day business and addressing that with the career field managers in order to update those CDCs and training plans. Those inherent processes that are today on the FM side will transition over to the A1 side.
Another question, joint environment and leave approval. Will other service personnel have access to AFIPPS to approve leave?
For that specific question, in order for a joint member to have access to MilPDS, a record will have to be created for them. How that's going to be happening is still yet to be determined, but in order for there to be the workflow working within AFIPPS, we will need to create an account, a non-pay affecting account, but there will be the ability to have outside personnel having access to AFIPPS, be that a supervisor, commander. Will AFIPPS identify who makes the update to a member's record? MilPDS currently doesn't define who makes updates in records, but as anonymous or unknown. There is the ability to track. It's all based off of your login. If it does say anonymous unknown, chances are that is a system update. However, if there is an individual update to a member's record, there will be an audit trail. We do need to retain that for audit purposes. Another question, every member in the Air Force will have access to AFIPPS tomorrow. What the distinction between the regular Air Force, Guard, Reserve, and the MPFs are the security levels. AFIPPS is going to be essentially, the way I like to put it, virtual MPF, but with more functionality. For the general personnelist, it will retain a lot of the same functions that MilPDS has today, but with some added functions. But yes, to answer your question, everybody will have access to AFIPPS. To answer the question about civilian pay, AFIPPS will not address civilian pay at all. We still have separate systems for that. How will AFIPPS handle third-party transactions, i.e. garnishments outside of DJMS? AFIPPS is, we are currently working with multiple outside agencies to interface and exchange information between systems, garnishments being one of them. Will there be a stop processing date before January 2021 to prevent integrated issues between DMO, DGMS, and AFIPPS? Yes. What that date is still yet to be determined as we get closer to completion of development. Will this system be mobile, accessed through your government phone via app? Not in increment 1. As we evolve this system, that capability has the potential, especially if we can move this system cloud-based, but as of right now, it will not have that functionality.
How much archived DGMS data will AFIPPS house pre-2021? AFIPPS will not house any DGMS data. DGMS will be archived with the data prior to 2021.
How will regulations be rewritten to incorporate the change in program processing? We have a team that is specifically looking at business process realignment, and they are annotating all the different changes that we are identifying as we go through development. But as we get closer to going live, they will also be working in concert with the business in order to ensure that the instructions are updated and released to the field in a timely manner. As of right now, this will not replace MyPay. There will still be some functionality that will be retained by MyPay.
Since member will have some sort of access, will virtual MPF applications be phased into AFIPPS? VRED looking at pictorial of awards, RIPS.
For that, it is too early to tell whether or not that's even a possibility. As of right now, there will be 2 distinct systems. Virtual MPF is essentially a read out of MIL-PDS. It's too early to tell whether or not virtual MPF would go away. Will the field be provided with updated or new regulations and guidance reflected in the new system and procedures? Yes, via AFI, PSDG, PSDMs, all of the information will be sent out to the field prior to going live. How will we identify who will handle overlapping issues from today to tomorrow? Can you be a little bit more specific? Finance or MPF? Anything after 2021, once we go live, will be handled on the A1 side with the help of FM personnel. Anything prior to the 2021 go live date will still be with the FM personnel. A1 will not have access to DJMS, so that would still be an FM function to be able to work the historical pay issues. Is there a backup plan in case this total switch doesn't go as planned, similar to what happened with dimers? The biggest difference between dimers and this program is we've actually gone into development. Dimers never got off the planning phase. So when we're talking about a backup plan, there is no backup plan per se. The plan is to go with AFIPPS tomorrow.
Will UTAPs go away? Currently, there are talks of UTAPs being subsumed by arrows for reserve, but this still yet has been confirmed. So ultimately, for reserve component, meaning your reservists, tomorrow we'll have one reporting instance for all participation, including active duty. So if you're participating in drill weekends, it'll be processed through arrows enhanced instead of arrows R.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day. Thank you so much.